So school kids from the same community, with the same resources, with the same school, we've got huge variation in the kids. And we should be able to do something about that. It's not a matter of, oh, you know, I'm teaching in a really tough school, so the kids are going to be dumb, I won't care, sort of approach. That's not going to work, because the variation is within the school. So we have to find a way to address that. And that's part, I'm going to talk about that when I talk about template 4 a bit. But it's also thinking about that in terms of school plans. You know, how are you going to improve the education for kids, you know, in the government schools? Because I think that we've got a massive challenge to say, well, okay, that clearly is quite wrong. Because I also know that a lot of the schools that the parents are taking the kids away from government schools to send them to, they aren't very good schools. And certainly, not at all. Every school's government funded.
And all kids have to go to their local school.
That's right. And not only do they have to go to the local school, they're not allowed to leave the local school. And the school's not allowed to kick them out.
They also don't have multicultural society like we have. They're monoculture with about 98% British. It's
certainly very high. They have a Sami population, and they also have Roman, meaning Gypsy, population, but they're quite small, much smaller than ours. Yeah.
And I guess you can understand why, in a situation like that or an environment like that, where I think it would be a lot easier to get good results happening if you're not dealing with some of the other issues that, say, we Victoria have to deal with in our schools. That's notwithstanding the fact that they're getting a lot of good results.
No, I think that's true. But we've also got to keep in mind that at least some proportion of our best results are actually from, if you like, our divergent cultural groups. And I agree with you. I actually think that that's the thing that, in a sense, was most different to our system, because it's a two-way thing. It's
they're stuck with you.
Yeah, that's right. They can't get out of it. No matter how much you muck around, you're still with us.
Yeah.
So that's for them. But for us, as we have to find a way to solve the problem. Yeah. So I think it's actually, yeah. It's actually a really interesting, you know, dynamic that would create in the school management and everything like that. The management of the kids. Anyway, we're going to talk about that later on. I just wanted to mention that now. Okay. So on day one, we looked at a rationale for whole school approaches, and we looked at some particular approaches, whole school approaches. You know, thinking about aspects of teaching, approaches to numeracy, thinking about tasks, collaborative planning and units. On day two, we talked more about the plan. We talked about a whole school approach to using data effectively. Did you like that approach to using data, by the way, that really looking into things in some sort of detail? Did that make sense to you? Not much, bollocks. Taking a whole school approach to think about lessons and teaching, we started on that. We looked at 2 templates. Okay. Can I just ask, what have you done since last time? Could you actually just have a brief talk at your table about, now I'm talking about what have you done about the school plan stuff? And so we didn't get on to do, but it might be worth talking about it more because it's a little bit connected to developing a school plan. What is the school plan? And there was a number of things about Finland. There's another thing about Finland that I didn't mention, is that the teachers' salaries range between €3,000 a month and €4,500 a month, which I'm assuming they have high fuel bills and so on, but my calculation is that's about $100,000 a year as a starting salary. And they're saying in comparison it's more than computer programmers and only slightly less than doctors in terms of salary. So that actually says that. Now they do have high taxes, but it sort of says something. We also talked about the issue of parents. Have I talked to you about parents? I've got this thing about parents. I've talked to you about parents a bit, but I might even start again. Whatever. It's quite clear that parents are really important. And we're not systematically set up to actually somehow engage parents in this whole enterprise. And in fact, if anything, if the parents were to, let's say there was a dispute between the teacher and the student, on balance you would expect the parent to take the side of the student. Whereas I think that in reality, like in the high-performing countries, the parent takes the side of the teacher. And we need to find a way to change that. You know, engage with the parents, find out what's the best way to get these kids to really realise that they have to put some effort in as well. It's a two-way street thing. We have to run good programs, but the parents have to send the kids to school, and the kids have to be ready to learn, and they have to do some homework and try hard and the rest of it. So it's all a bit connected. So that's right. That was just reporting on the discussions we had there, and it was also talking about the things that's cultural. But there's nothing in the Australian culture, whether it's, if you like, the Vietnamese part of Australian culture, or the Italian part of Australian culture, or the Anglo-Celtic part of Australian culture, or the Somali part of Australian culture. There's nothing in Australian culture that says we're lazy. Nothing. In fact, we're one of the hardest working people for people who are working in terms of the hours of work in the world. And I'm sure that's true for teachers. There's just something we're doing with the kids now that's sort of creating this sort of generation of underachievement. And I think that trying to find ways to engage the kids in it is actually part of our challenge and what this is about. And it's actually why the number one and perhaps the only reason how to improve that is why we even talk about a school plan. The issue that was being raised here about, okay, I'm in a school and we've got good VCE results. Now, presumably there must be some schools with good VCE results and good NAPLAN results, in terms of above average that you're happy with. And so there is actually a sense in, okay, if our results are good, if all our indicators are good, why would we want to threaten anything by changing things? And so that is a different issue. Is that, when it's obvious you can do better, well, okay, there's a rationale for change. If you think you're doing well, okay, it's less. And so that's why there has to be school-based development. There's no sort of across the region, even across the state type of model. It has to be adapted to you and your teachers and so on. Okay, now I'm always going to skip over this. These are sort of the slides from last time that I'm just going through quickly. We sort of said, what are the big picture goals? That's the first step. Then the next step is, what do you see the key action headings? And we'd sort of proposed those, but you have to suggest your own. And then we said, what do you see as the key focus issues, with the rows? And I think Adrian mentioned curriculum, pedagogy and assessment to do that. And then there's what goes into the table, the things that are going to set you up for your actions. And I sort of said, getting endorsement for the leadership, and I think that's happened in lots of places. You could hear that, and obviously, and I'm suspecting from what you said that you didn't meet much opposition, although you didn't much. But it's, and so I think what I'm saying is that people are saying, oh, here's someone with a plan, how can we help? Formulate a sequence of actions, stress that the process is collaborative, and so on.